はい、おはようございます。それではSECCON2017決勝大会の2日目のカンファレンス、これから開催いたします。このセッションは同時通訳入りますので、こちらのレシーバーご活用ください。そして繰り返しになりますけれども、セッション終了後は入り口の方へお返しいただければと思います。でこのセッションでお話しされるビトさんなんですけれども、世界最高峰の CTF、デフコン CTF で5年間もオーガナイザーを務められ、そしてですね、今回、ビトさん講演されるのは日本で初、ここでしか聞けない初めての講演になります。でビトさん自身はですね、オートメーションのプロフェッショナルで、人類初となるコンピューター対コンピューターで戦った CGC と言われるサイバーセキュリティの大会もオーガナイズされたすごい方です。で今回ですね、このビトさん招聘にあたりご協力を賜った東京電機大学の安田学長の方から初めにご挨拶いただきたいと思います。安田学長お願いいたします。
Good morning, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Hiroshi Yasuda, the president of this university, Tokyo Denki University, and hosting the SECCON 2017 this time. I am very happy to welcome you all of you here, and also Mr. Vito Genovese. Welcome to SECCON 2017. As all of you know, that because of the rapid progress of the IoT, Internet of Things, every industry, every society is advancing very much. We owe the IoT very much. Because of that, how to stop the cyber attacks is the first issue that we solve this time. DEFCON and also SECCON is a place where we develop and level up the technology of the cybersecurity. Because of this, our university, Tokyo Denki University, had decided to make a full support to SECCON. My dream is that the technology level of SECCON will catch up to the DEFCON in the future. But I know it takes unthinkably long time. So I asked the SECCON 2017 committee that to make an event to learn DEFCON. This talk from Mr. Vito Genovese is the first step. So please listen, learn, and understand so that we can grow. So I am expecting you very much today. Thank you very much.
安田学長ありがとうございました。それでは皆さん、ビトさんを温かい拍手でお迎えください。ビトさんよろしくお願いします。
Good morning. I'm Vito of the Legitimate Business Syndicate, and I've been invited here by our wonderful hosts to talk about our 5 years running DEF CON Capture the Flag. So first of all, I actually arrived here Thursday and have been enjoying this fantastic city and this fantastic country. I've enjoyed the museums I've visited, the trains I've gotten to ride, the really fast trains I've gotten to ride, and it's been an amazing time. And I can't thank you enough for inviting me here. So, Capture the Flag, also known as CTF, is a broad category of computer hacking contests. They generally involved interacting with the computer system to try and get it to disclose some secret, known as a flag, and redeeming that flag for points. DEF CON is the world's largest computer hacking conference. Last year, 25,000 people attended. This is the view from our room of just a corner of the contest area from 2 years ago. DEF CON Capture the Flag has a long history. In 1996, the first DEF CON Capture the Flag game was played. It was kind of confusing back then, and not a lot of people played it because it was a difficult game to participate in. Some teams would bring a new vulnerable service to challenge other teams to steal from it, and other teams would be involved in attacking these services. It was extremely chaotic. In 2000, they formalized the organization of CON CTF. Instead of just being a collection of tables in the middle of the conference space where people would bring computers, bring services, and challenge other teams with it, it began to have fixed rules. It began to have a collection of organizers who were just random DEF CON staff, also known as DEF CON goons. They started using computer programs to manage the points instead of just keeping track on paper. From 2002 until 2004, a team called Ghetto Hackers ran DEF CON CTF. They considered themselves independent to an extent of the DEF CON organization. Starting in 2005, a team called Kenshoto started organizing. In 2006 is when my friends and I at university started playing a game. So our first memory of DEF CON Capture the Flag is Kenshoto's time running it. After a few years, Kenshoto stepped down, and a new team called DD Tech stepped up to run it. DD Tech was another CTF team that had played in the Kenshoto years and actually pretended to be a different team the first year they ran it. During the DEF CON closing ceremonies, the members of a team called School of Root got up on stage and said, the whole time, all weekend, when we were playing CTF and School of Root was at the top of the scoreboard, that was an elaborate lie. We were actually organizing the game and pretending to play. And they ran the game like that for another few years. 5 years ago, my friends and I formed a team called Legitimate Business Syndicate and stepped up to run DEF CON Capture the Flag after DD Tech stepped down. I'm going to talk a lot more about our experience because we have a lot of time this morning. So I just want to emphasize this was an amazing time, but it's also an amazing amount of work, which is why last year we announced that we were done. And starting this year, a new team called Order of the Overflow has stepped up to organize DEF CON CTF. We know they're going to do an amazing job, but I wish them the best of luck anyways. Most Capture the Flag games fall into one of two distinct formats, or I guess broad rule sets. The first one I'm going to talk about is based off the US trivia show called Jeopardy! In that one, you'll see an arrangement or a scoreboard or a game board a lot like this. Teams connect to a scoreboard, which is usually some flavor of web application. On that scoreboard, they're going to see a list of challenges. They'll click on a challenge and get a prompt. And a prompt may be anything. In this case, this is a prompt for a service called Crack Me One, or a challenge called Crack Me One. It's in the baby's first category, and right now it's worth 15 points. It includes an address to a server and a link to download a file full of something, and a field to put in the answer. With that, teams can figure out how to solve it. In this case, I went and found a write-up for Crack Me One, and like most write-ups for Crack Me One, it involves a lot of using some sort of disassembly program to figure out how the binary works, and then a lot of Python or some other scripting language to automate how they solve it. Once you solve a challenge, or you figure out a way to get it to disclose a flag or some other representation that you've finished it, you take that flag to the scoreboard and get some points. Calculating points for these challenges can be difficult. It either involves us sitting together at the beginning of the game and trying to figure out which challenges are hard and which ones are easy, or we took the lazy way out the last couple years and made each challenge decay in points the more teams that solve it. So Reese's Revenge down there at the bottom is worth more points than Mute or Bad Int, merely because fewer teams have solved it. Our DEF CON Capture the Flag qualifiers were traditionally a Jeopardy-style game. But first, I'm going to talk about a Jeopardy-style game I played last year at the CON2017 computer camp in the Netherlands. The big CTF team from the Netherlands, Eindbazen, which is Dutch for final boss, ran this game out of tents in a big field. This tent is actually the German team's Eat, Sleep, Pwn, Repeat tent. And you can see all the other tents in the background where everybody else at this festival is staying. It's a lot of fun as long as you're really, really careful to not get your computer and all your stuff rained on. The challenge I'm going to talk about is called ASB. The first step in solving ASB is to connect to the scoreboard, read the prompt, and get the file. And this is what the prompt looked like. It talks about how there's a team member on Eindbazen named ASB who does a lot of the difficult work of just organizing the CTF and not a lot of time to write challenges or get good at binaries. And the hint here is that you can reverse engineer it or you can ASB it. And I want to figure out what ASB it means. So I download that asb.tgz file, decompress it, and identify that it's a Windows console executable. So because it's a random executable file I just downloaded from hackers on the internet, I decide I should run it. And whenever I run it, I get a prompt just asking me what the flag is. So what I'm guessing I need to do is figure out what the flag is based on how the binary works. And up here, you can see me trying some answers. I try the catchphrase from the movie Hackers, Hack the Planet, which is not correct. I try some other flags, and it tells me character by character if they're right or wrong. So as I progress, I can figure out, I can just guess a lot of characters, and it'll tell me it's the right one. So my goal is to guess the correct input. And from here, I can see a few paths forward. I can reverse engineer a Windows binary, which is something I've never done. I could guess each character by hand. Is the next character A? It's not. Is the next character B? Is the next character C? And so on. Or I can write a program to solve it. And I'm going to confess, I switched back and forth between guessing by hand and writing the program. Because as we all know, programming is hard, and I make a lot of mistakes when I program. So I fire up the trusty text editor, and I make a new Ruby script to solve it. And I've decided to just take the quote ASB way out. I'm going to open the executable. I'm going to read from the executable and make sure it's behaving the way I expect. And in this loop at the bottom of the file, I'm going to guess character by character and hope that I get the solution. And I did. I run the program, and you can see the solution right there above the stack trace because there's no point in debugging the happy path if you succeed before it crashes. And with that flag and the curly braces and all the hexadecimal characters in the middle, I can paste that into the scoreboard and get points. And because Eindbazen are very nice organizers, and they had a CTF lounge set up in their tent with comfortable beanbag chairs and power and wired internet, they had cold beverages. And your reward for getting a challenge right wasn't just points. They would bribe you with German energy drinks or Dutch beers or both. So that's Jeopardy style. You connect to a scoreboard, you read a prompt, you solve the challenge it gives you, and you get points. And you repeat that until the game ends, or you get tired and fall asleep, or something else stops you from playing. The other broad category of capture the flag games are called attack-defense contests. And this is the visualization from our capture the flag at DEF CON in 2017. Each team is one of these audio sockets on the left and right sides of the mixing board there, and you see headphone jacks and music notes flying between the teams, and those represent successful attacks. So here we can see an attack from bushwhackers going against tea deliverers, I think. And we have to make visualizations because these games are difficult to watch without knowing what's going on. So with attack-defense games, they're about reverse engineering the challenges that you're given on a server that you have some control over. You have to figure out how to patch flaws in these challenges, how to defend them. And you have to figure out how to exploit other teams to steal data. And you have to do all of this while keeping these programs working the way they're supposed to. So this is some of the jargon we use in our game and how it kind of works. We have our scoring system at the top, and it's a program that we call Scoreboard. We have PPP's instance of a service called @mail on the left in the green box. And at the bottom right, we have the team Shellfish. At the beginning of every round, the scoring system deposits a flag or a chunk of data in each team's service. And we do this just by going in through behind the service, just writing it to the disk on a file usually. Sometime during the round, Shellfish is able to assemble an exploit and run it against PPP's @mail service, and they get a copy of this flag. They then take this flag, this piece of data, and they paste it or send it to the scorebot to redeem it for points. So that's the primary way to get points. Also during the round, the scorebot is running availability checks. Since @mail is a mail program, the scorebot connects to @mail, sends messages, disconnects, reconnects, and makes sure the messages can be read. If all of that works, if it's working as intended, we say that the @mail service is available. It's working correctly. If PPP breaks their @mail service, that's bad. That means that it's failing an availability check. It's like a website being down. And at the same time, depending on how they took it down, that may also mean that Shellfish doesn't have an opportunity to steal flags from it. So this is a really bad situation for Shellfish because if PPP just deletes the binary, they can't be scored on. So we make failing an availability check a lot worse than just being hacked repeatedly. And this is the format we use for DEF CON CTF Finals. To illustrate this, I'm going to talk about a challenge we made last year called Rubik's. A Rubik's Cube, Rubik's K''S possessive, invented by a guy named Rubik, is a puzzle cube. Each cube has a series of squares on each side, and you rotate it in your hand to try and get all the same colors together. In our case, we made a simulation of a Rubik's Cube for a 9-bit computer that we also invented last year that we only told teams about the day before the game. What you do is you connect to the service and you send it the instructions on how to rotate this cube. Do you rotate it up, down, left, right, etc.? And you can solve these cubes in 54 rotations every time. And if you solve the cube, we execute your series of Rubik's Cube instructions as assembly instructions or machine code for this computer. So a lot of this next section is based on a report from the team Lab Rats on how they solved this challenge. And it's a lot of fun to read these write-ups, both as an organizer to see how your challenge will get solved, and as a player or just somebody interested to see what techniques they're using to figure out how to analyze software. So the first thing lab rats had to do was they had to figure out how to take the service that runs on a computer with 9-bit bytes, how to connect to it over a network from a computer that uses 8-bit bytes, and successfully understand what was going on. Once they have that, they take the binary that they also have for Rubik's and figure out how it's wired into the standard C library, or libc. Once they analyze libc, they can start to figure out how the actual binary itself works. And that's a lot of work. We gave them 24 hours with this never-before-seen computer architecture before the game started, and they come in the room, they get set up, they plug in, they connect to the network, and the game starts, and here's this brand new file. And other teams are in a race to analyze it, they're in a race to steal from you, and it's very, very stressful as a player. How are these binaries supposed to work? What is this scoring system going to be checking? How can we attack other players' copies of this binary, and how can we defend it? You get points by capturing flags using exploits sent over a network. You lose points by having flags captured, again, by exploits sent over a network. And you can lose a lot of points by breaking it. It's complicated for players. There's a lot of stuff they have to do. There's a lot of time management. Which player on each team is working on reversing something, who is taking packet capture over the network and trying to figure out if they're being attacked. It's complicated, and it's frustrating. We're making players deal with binaries without source code that do strange things, but it's a lot of fun because it's all in this safe environment where nobody's going to get hurt or lose their job or otherwise have problems based on what happens in the game. But I should emphasize, both kinds of game, Jeopardy style and attack defense, are extremely ambitious. They're difficult to play in, and they're both very, very hard to run. To me, the three main elements of running any of these games are making the game run smoothly. If the game is choppy, if it doesn't start on time, if the scoring system itself seems unreliable or unintuitive, players aren't going to put in a huge amount of effort to deal with these issues. It's like playing a buggy video game or working with a car or riding a train that doesn't run on time. We want the contest to be fair. If players think the organizers are giving teams that aren't them special privileges or special benefits, they're not going to take the game seriously. And to me, a lot of the appeal of these games are that players are all working together on their team, assuming that other players are doing the same. And finally, the actual challenges or the actual tasks players have to work with, they need to be fun. If they're too straightforward, if there are tools you can just download that solve a challenge instantly, that's not something that I look forward to. So the first part of making one of these games run smoothly is the same as making any other team project work well. It starts early, long before you write a single line of code, long before you put a single mark on a whiteboard or do any design work. It starts by figuring out who you're going to work with, who is on your team. At Legitimate Business Syndicate, we built the team out of people we'd worked with previously. A lot of us had studied or went to university together from 2005 to 2007, and a lot of other members of the team worked together in 2011, 2012. And actually, a lot of us still work together now. This is 7 years before we took the name Legitimate Business Syndicate, but I'm on the left. Gino, kind of the team leader, is top right, riding on my back. And we were participating in a university computer security contest. And we just figured out a difficult problem that had been hurting our team for 4 hours. And we were locked in this room on computers, and we solved the challenge and got a bit rowdy and had a lot of fun. And we kept in touch, and that's how we, remained as a team 10 years later. So our timeline for running DEF CON CTF started in August of 2012. The previous organizers, DD Tech, announced during DEF CON closing ceremonies that they were stepping down. They were done running DEF CON CTF. And at the time, I didn't talk with Geino a lot, but I thought, oh, cool, I wonder who's going to run it next. Several months later, on the day after Christmas, before I drove home after the holidays, Geino says I should, meet him for lunch. So we meet at this extremely classy place, a chain sports bar that serves only chicken wings off of the highway. And he tells me that DD Tech is stepping down and that he wants to build a team to run DEF CON CTF. And I told him, I've got a 3-hour drive home ahead of me, but I'll think about it. So I'm driving for 3 hours on our extremely boring long straight roads in the US. And I get home and I immediately get on the computer and say, I'm in, dude. Let's do this. So that was right at the end of 2012. Over the next month or so, we started working on some loose plans, just text messaging each other and talking online. And then finally in February of 2013, he gathered us all at his employer's office on a weekend because they had chairs and air conditioning. And we sat down around a big screen and worked on a first draft of the proposal. We sat on it for about a week. We reviewed it once more the next weekend and sent it off to the DEF CON organizers. And then a little less than a month later, in March, we were told our proposal was accepted, and get ready because it's going to be a bumpy ride. So our team composition, the lazy way for me to say, I could say the team is about 3/4 binary reverse engineers, but that's not an accurate assessment because a lot of the reverse engineers have different specialties or different interests beyond the job of decompiling programs. For our 2014 challenge, Badger, we relied a lot on the radio enthusiasts and the hardware enthusiasts in our group. For our 2015 challenges, we relied on a lot of people who were interested in different operating systems. That was the year at DEF CON we had Windows on ARM, we had Linux on MIPS, and we had Linux on x86. And I think we also had Android on ARM as well. And that was complicated, but because we had such a diverse set of skills in the group, it worked really well. Our 2017 final game, we relied a lot on our esoteric computing expert for Clemency, our never-before-seen kind of joke CPU architecture. Besides reverse engineering, we need to focus a lot on computer infrastructure, networking, making the hardware, provisioning operating systems, and setting everything up. And Salir is our infrastructure guy, and I would say he's the best, and you can't have him. We just completely depended on his hard work getting everything set up, his techniques for automating computer provisioning, and could not run the game without him. My background is mostly in database-backed web applications, and through CTF, I've gotten new skills and learned a lot more, but that always kind of ended up my responsibility because I love SQL, the database language, a whole lot. But the important thing to remember is that people grow and change over time. None of us are the same person with the same set of skills we were in 2013. And because of that, our roles in the CTF team have to be flexible. The essential questions, I think, are who do you know that you would want to work with for several years? Who do you trust to make right decisions for the benefit of the team, the benefit of the players, and the benefit of the game? And most importantly, who do you like to be around? Who would you, run errands for? Who would you go to the store to buy food for? That sort of thing. Because running a CTF is a team exercise, and you're going to spend a lot of time with your team. The important part of working with anybody else is communication. What we found was that having a chat room like Slack or Discord shared by the team worked really well. If you were working on something late at night and you wanted to report progress or ask somebody a question, you could type it in, go to bed, and wait for them to respond at their own pace. What that's not great for is keeping more in sync and getting everybody's feedback all at once. And for that, we had a weekly meeting scheduled. We'd all connect to video chat on a Wednesday night. A lot of us would pour ourselves some whiskey and eat dinner while we were on the call. But they were really great for making sure everything stayed up to date, for coordinating with the DEF CON organizers and the venue, making sure stuff got done correctly, getting everybody to agree on visual design and that sort of thing. Finally, when it comes time to run the contest, it's incredible to have everybody all in the same place. So for our qualifiers, because we don't have to be in Vegas for that, what we've done is we'd meet at somebody's office and just take it over for the weekend. We'd meet at somebody's house. Or what we did last year was we rented a big 10-bedroom house that was in driving distance for most everybody and just kind of took it over. We brought gallons and gallons of beverages, and we all brought computers. We found out the house had slow internet, so we had to cope. We brought virtual reality rigs and video games in case the game went well and running it was boring. And here we are about 90 minutes before the contest starts, figuring out what order the challenges get unlocked in, and grilling other team members about which challenges are actually finished and safe to release yet, because nothing can ever happen on time. The most important part of having a team is supporting the team. In order for a team to work together, everybody has to have all their needs met. The joke at DEF CON is the 1-2-3 rule, in that everybody should take 1 shower, have 2 meals, and get 3 hours of sleep every day, which is, honestly, that's not nearly enough. But one thing we need to make sure whenever we're working with a team, that everybody's getting enough food, they're getting enough water, they're not getting too much alcohol, they're getting enough sleep, and they're getting enough downtime between people asking them difficult questions. And I learned an important lesson in 2014. During our finals game, one team's hardware, their computer, was misbehaving. It was locking up and requiring reboots, and it was delaying the flow of the game. The flow of the game is something in the scoreboard, depositing flags, doing availability checks. That's kind of my department. But because it was a hardware problem, Solir had to work on that. So he would be on stage running shell commands against the buggy hardware from his laptop, and then when it locked up, he'd have to go off the stage, down the stairs, around the corner to the servers, unplug the computer and plug it back in, and then go all the way around, wait for it to boot, and go through this whole 5 to 10 minute cycle of troubleshooting what was going on. And at the same time, we're fielding questions from players like, why is the game going so slow? It's called capture the flag, but it's going so slow and there aren't new flags to capture. So I'm getting stressed, Solir's getting stressed, and I just ask him, it's like, well, how long is the fix going to take? And he says, I don't know, and just walks out of the room just quickly. And none of us knew what to do because he's normally super even-tempered, super calm, extremely nice, but we found his breaking point. And he did eventually come back. He had gone, he'd gotten something to drink, he'd had lunch, and he thought about this problem without all the stress. And what that taught me is that we need to look out for each other when we're on the same team. You can't just assume that each question is going to be answered correctly, because whenever you're under stress, whenever you have a lot to think about, it's hard. And the most important thing you can do for the people playing your game is to take care of the team that's running it. That's job number one. One last bit about smooth operation is to remember that capture the flag software is software. It just happens to be software where the design purpose is for it to be crashed or exploited. And because of this, we need to automate testing and deployment. One of the biggest changes in our games from year to year was that we got better at deploying the software, and we got a lot better at testing it. For qualifiers, the number one question we get from teams is this thing actually solvable? And what we can usually do is find the right terminal, hit up to bring up the previous command, hit enter, and watch the attack work against the production copy of the service and say, yes, it's exploitable, I just did it, good luck, and go away. So that's all about running the contest smoothly. The next thing we need to focus on is making it a fair contest. Nobody wants to play a game where the other team is always going to win. And this is hard, because Capture the Flag is a game about computer hacking or breaking computer systems, but Capture the Flag is also a computer system itself. And we worry. Sometimes we have problems where players hack something that they're supposed to hack, but they do it the wrong way, in a way that actively hurts other teams. Sometimes they want to hack the wrong thing. This is a problem we had in finals last year, where we would upload the binaries for future challenges to the scoreboard, and while we wouldn't make the link visible to teams, some teams guessed the links and saw challenges early. And that's hacking the wrong thing, but we didn't catch it until it was too late. For attack defense games, there's also the risk of them fixing or patching a vulnerability the wrong way. And in all of these, our final resolution is to restrict what players can do more. In qualifiers, it's easy. Each challenge is pretty much isolated, and we work on isolation by keeping each challenge on a separate host. So our server provider, we'd rent a different server for each challenge, and we actually would rent servers in different data centers around the world. So we'd have 3 copies running in different places, one in North Virginia, one in Ireland, and one here. And using DNS, we could send players to the closest server. We'd also, later years, make sure each connection to the game or to a challenge would get a separate Linux container using xinetd and runc. That way, if players do trick a challenge into writing a bunch of stuff on the file system, we can get it cleaned up without having to do a lot of work. And then finally, we limit what system calls a service is able to make with seccomp. So if we know this service never needs to open a network connection, we just prohibit it from opening a new network connection or opening a file or anything like that. Finals was always really hard for us because it's a more complex game, which gives us a lot more complex problems. And the biggest problem I would say we had was keeping the game about reverse engineering instead of administering an operating system. So in 2013, our first year running it, what we did was instead of players getting root, the account that can do anything, they would get a limited access account that could upload new instances of the service and just kind of look around and see what was on the server. Each service would then run in its own unprivileged account. This worked mostly well until we caught teams using what we call a Superman defense, or a defense that can't be attacked at all, just by definition. So one example of a Superman defense would be using a firewall and only allowing connections from the scoring system availability checks and not allowing connections from other teams. That's bad. Some other Superman defenses were things like using an emulator and preventing the service from reading the flag out of memory or off disk. And those are good defenses, but we don't want the game to be about unbeatable defenses. And the way we eventually learned more about how to solve this came from the US Defense Advanced Research Projects Agency, or DARPA, starting in 2014. They worked on a project called the Cyber Grand Challenge, which was a capture the flag game for autonomous computers. And the way that worked was this CGC Finals. They had all these computers on a stage. They had a handful of human referees connected to the game on stage, making sure everything worked smoothly. But the only stuff going in and out of the stage was cold water for the computers and power for the computers. And the only way information got out of the game was two robots physically moving a DVD disk that would be burned inside the network and move it outside the network to show that no data was going into the game, that it was definitely autonomous computers. And the way this worked was by making the whole game structure extremely formal. Instead of just players connecting to the game and having to deal with it from there, up front, DARPA said that instead of this idea of challenges or services, they're going to be challenge binaries. And every challenge binary is going to be 32-bit, x86. It's going to be in the special CGC executable format that only has a handful of system calls and can't save state to disk, just to keep it extra easy to analyze. Instead of sending exploits over a network, teams would upload a proof of vulnerability, again, an executable using the CGC executable format, can't make many system calls, and instead of copying a whole chunk of memory, it only had to demonstrate it could write to some registers or read a tiny piece of memory. And the goal here was this idea of offline evaluation. So players connect to the team interface, they upload files, and the game infrastructure then runs stuff at its own pace. Availability checks run in parallel. Teams get packet captures when they become available. But the brilliant part is that it's reproducible. Given the same set of replacement binaries, the same set of proofs of vulnerability, you could rerun the game somewhere else and validate that the scores came out as intended, that an independent team could analyze the game. So from that, in 2015, we started severely restricting system calls, making it so clever teams couldn't run emulators to break the game. In 2016, we actually used the entire Cyber Grand Challenge game format, including one of their autonomous computers, to play the game against humans. And finally, in 2017, all the challenges were in this emulator that didn't have a lot of real-world access and couldn't do anything bad. Another element of our fair contest was releasing as much information as practical. For qualifiers, we release complete scoring information. We don't release much personal information, just handles for players. And for finals, we release the entire scoring database. We got a lot of valuable feedback from just regular members of the public that analyzed our scoring and helped us in future years. Fairness also means accessibility, or making it easy for people to participate. One of the things we learned after the first few years was that we couldn't make this assumption that everybody playing the game would be familiar with US online hacker culture, and that we had to use simpler language to explain concepts to players. There's a fine line between extra work that is kind of unrelated to the game, like researching memes and jokes, and extra work that's essential to the game, like figuring out how to reverse engineer a computer you've never seen before. And what we want to do is minimize the amount of work that's not about the actual contents of the game, and make sure if anybody's doing extra work, it's because they need to, write a new tool to disassemble a 9-bit binary. And the 9-bit binary thing really leads into this idea of fun challenges. And the way we make fun challenges is breaking expectations. One of my favorite challenges was a challenge that Lightning wrote in, I think, 2014 called DOS Fun for You. There's a write-up on this challenge, and the report about how this player solved the challenge starts with, we downloaded the file and discovered it's a DOS binary, the operating system from the 80s and 90s. We had to analyze the binary in IDA Pro, and we found a bug in the disassembly program that we had to debug while it was debugging the DOS binary, and just binary patch a commercial disassembly tool. Once they got all that working, only then could they start the reverse engineering on this extremely esoteric stack of software. Another challenge that was fun for players and kind of unexpected was our finals challenge from 2014 called Badger. It was a hand-built custom radio badge running on a custom CDMA network. We put in a lot of time programming this, designing the board, soldering it together, and it all worked really well except for one bug that made it so PPP could never score points with it. But they won anyway, so I don't think they're too mad. In our 2016 and 2017 finals games, consensus evaluation gave us a lot of great stories, and I think might be the future of Capture the Flag. So in CGC and in our consensus evaluation game, whenever you're defending a program by patching it, everybody else gets to see the patch. That's how the this week's iOS text rendering bug got exploited, was because it was fixed in a beta and somebody analyzed the different binaries. So for this means there's a huge explosion in the number of binaries that players in an attack-defense game have to analyze. They don't just analyze the one they get at the start of the game, they have to look at everybody else's patches. So my goal in qualifiers was to get teams to build automated analysis tools and get comfortable with having the computer help you analyze a pile of programs. I made these challenges 1,000 cuts and Crack Me 2,000, just dumped hundreds of binaries on teams and made them script solutions for them. The feedback we've gotten from players was that they had a bunch of new solutions. A lot of these teams had very different solutions, which is really cool. And a lot of people who solved these challenges did it with automated analysis that they'd never done before, which makes me really happy that people were eager to learn like that. For our 2016 finals, halfway through Saturday, a player from a team comes up and asks us why they're just falling down and losing a bunch of points on the scoreboard. And we told them it's, well, you're being attacked, and when you're attacked, you lose points. That's how Capture the Flag works. And they looked at us and said, well, we're using the same binary as the winning team. How come they're not losing points? And we just kind of looked at them until they went away after, they face-palmed a bit. And what happened was they used the same binaries that the winning team was using, and the winning team left a secret back door in them so that they could go and look and say, okay, Team X has copied us. We could go send in our secret code and steal the flag without any effort at all. And that was incredible. We were laughing about that all afternoon. And last year with Rubik's, that was another, what I think, amazing challenge that I learned a lot from. Because Rubik's always evaluated shellcode, and because the scoring system's availability checks relied on it evaluating shellcode, players would have to go in, analyze other teams' attacks, and specifically block them in the binary. And then they'd look at other teams' binaries, see which attacks were getting blocked, and build new attacks. And it was fascinating because there was this back and forth between player on one team writing a new attack, player on another team blocking it, this person analyzing that. And this back and forth gameplay made it feel more like a multiplayer game. Like they were interacting with other players like in soccer or Splatoon or something, which is magical to me. I wish we'd learned that before our last year running it. No, I'm amazed we learned that at all. And that's kind of the three legs of what I've learned from running CTF. But I want to emphasize, there's so much more to learn. We were learning lessons in our last year running this game. And I think we all, everybody in this room, have more work ahead of us. There's a huge opportunity to build capture the flag games in the future, to grow the community, to get more players in this. And from everything I've learned, the best way to learn more about capture the flag is to do it. Play CTF games, build CTF games. And I want to thank everybody for DEF CON CTF was 5 years with the best group of people I've ever worked with. 5 years of building a contest for the friendliest and smartest community of people I've ever known. And I want to thank everybody here and all the CTF players around the world. Thanks for making it amazing. And if you do want to play CTF, the new DEF CON CTF organizers, Order of the Overflow, their game will be starting on May 12th at midnight UTC. I don't know if they have a website yet, but keep an eye out on them, and I'm sure it'll be a lot of fun. So thank you for having me here today, and I believe we have time for questions if anybody has any. Any notes, and I'm going to post notes, references, and slides to my Twitter account, which is Vito_LBS.
はい、ビートさんありがとうございます。一旦大きな拍手お願いします。Thanks for pretty well that device. で Q&A セッションなんですけども、ビトさんに同時通訳レシーバーつけていただきますので、英語でも日本語でもどちらでも、Q&A できますので、ご質問ある方は挙手のお願いいたします。マイクを通じて通訳していただきますので、ご質問ある方いらっしゃいますか。
質問全部講演全部聞いてなかったので分かんないんですけど、LBS の5年間の運営の中で CGC との CGC で優勝したマシーンと人がハッカーが対決するコンテストがCTF が一番大変だったと思うんですけども、どの辺が一番大変だったですか。それと普通の CTF と何か変えた部分とかありますか。
Okay, so the question was for the Cyber Grand Challenge in 2016 and our game that ran CGC computers against human teams, what made that different and what made that difficult? Is that a fair assessment of the question? Okay, so the difficulty in running computers against humans, and this is something that we struggle, it was literally my full-time job for like 6 months before DEF CON. And the difficulty was taking the CGC design was very API oriented. The computers would make API requests to web endpoints, and they would receive blobs of JSON data from the scoring system, and they'd analyze these pieces of data in the way they were programmed to and submit results. That's not how people work. People want to visit a web page. They want to, maybe read text and images with, visual data because, at the end of the day, we process visual data. And we don't get programmed to do things. We have to go out and learn it. And we have to be incentivized to learn it because most people don't want to learn things that are boring. So a lot of the work for our 2016 finals began with our 2016 qualifiers. What we tried to do for qualifiers was we had a whole category of challenges to get people interested in solving CGC binaries, in downloading the tools and learning the way to work with them. And I believe that helped a lot. It got the players or the teams that were coming to finals that were not ready or that were not affiliated with CGC yet to understand these tools and what was going on. At the same time for finals, we had to rebuild the CGC infrastructure from the ground up, both because we needed to build it from the ground up because DARPA wasn't going to release theirs, and also because we needed to build it with ways for humans to use it. We needed places for people to drag and drop a file to upload it. We needed places for people to click to get other players' patched binaries and that sort of thing. So it was a very complicated contest to run, and I don't have a quick answer for what was difficult about it, because it's CTF, it's all difficult. But thank you for the excellent question, and I hope that's a good answer.
はい、ありがとうございます。その他ご質問ある方、後ろの。
Thank you for very much for your answer, エリちゃん。日本語で言おう。ミートさんの目線から見て、日本で行われているセッコンの CTF はどのような特徴がある、どのような点が素晴らしい、逆にどのような点が欠けているというふうに思われるか教えていただけますか。
Okay, so the question is, what's good, what are the good parts, and what are the bad parts about SECCON here in Japan? Is that a correct understanding of the question? Okay. So from what I've seen, it's a fantastic contest. I played in the qualifiers, and I wish I had more time that weekend to play more in the qualifiers because Legit BS didn't qualify for finals. But I had a lot of fun with the challenges, and it just seemed really cool. I don't have any experience with the finals here because I'm not that good at playing at CTF. I just have a set of skills that works well with running them, and I'd like to get better at playing them. But from what I've heard from all the players that I talked to, it seems like a fantastic game. So sorry I don't have anything to complain about, but yeah, it seems good.
はい、ありがとうございます。お次、
Thank you.
こちらで手を挙げていた方。
こんにちは。ライトアップとか CTF のライトアップとかを見ていて、その出来上がったこうやって解けばいいっていう、その Python コードとかその結果はすごいいっぱいシェアされてると思うんですけど、そこに至るまでになんかファジングとか、どういうアプローチでやるときとかに結構チームごとにいろんなツールとか、使ってやってると思うんですよ。でもそういうあたりは結構シェアされない。だから強いチームはそこに至るまでの考えとかがすごいとかツールとかがすごいいけてて、CTF って結局すごい時間かければ誰でも解けるようになってるような気がして、そこのスピードアップのためにそういうのをでもそういうところって結構共有されないから、結構強いチームがずっと強いみたいな、そういう現状があるような気が僕はしてるんですけど、その点についてどう思われるかっていうことと、そういったのをどうやってその弱いチームというかが強くなっていくためにどうしたらいいかとか、その辺のアドバイスがあったら教えてほしいです。
Okay, so my understanding of the question is there's a lot of information that's out there about how to solve these challenges. There's a lot of, especially Python code, there's a lot of other tooling that teams always seem to write from scratch. But there's the issue, which I do think is a real issue, is that we keep seeing the same teams win. Like there are several large, what I would call a CTF dynasty. So is that a fair assessment to the question?
そうなんですけど、そこにはこう、私の予想ですけど、その出てきてない情報というか、彼らが持ってるそのなんていうんですかね、ノウハウ、ツールみたいなもので、そこの肝になるところが結構シェアされてないなっていう感じがする。どう思いますかってことですかね。
Okay. So I do suspect and believe that a lot of teams do keep internal knowledge of the game or a lot of internal expertise that they don't share. And I'm not sure how much of that is because it's in a way that's impractical to share, or because of laziness, or because of wanting to do better competitively. So I'm going to take PPP, for example, because we can pick on them because they win all the time anyways, and they're a good target. And they're a big university team from a big university with a famous computer science department in the US. And they put a lot of effort into running Capture the Flag games and into running Capture the Flag teams. They have a university course in playing Capture the Flag games. And I believe it is, like, they do well consistently, and that's, good for them, but it's not fun to play in a CTF game and sit down and be like, oh, there's PPP, we're just gonna angle for second or third place this time. Do I think that PPP is withholding a lot of information because they want to do better? I'm not sure about that. Does PPP do well because they have a lot of people with just experience and kind of this like knowledge that can't be written down or something like that, that they can just guess at? And I guess to contrast, whenever I think about the team Shellfish, I think about a lot of what they have released from games, including from CGC, they released their whole mechanical fish software that played CGC for anybody to use. And it's good that they did that. It's very much like software that you may, like your best bet on using it is already knowing how to use it because you've used it a million times before. And that it's, special purpose, researchware, or, just kind of a pile of hacks that take a lot of work to use. And it's frustrating for us to see the same team keep winning sometimes, but if we think we're putting together a fair game, and if other teams don't complain about the way we run the game beyond, you should add more web challenges, it's hard to, I guess, go back on what works. But at the same time, it's hard for a new team to, show up on day one and be as good as a team that's been around for 10 years, 15 years. I think Shellfish has been around for almost 20 years now. So I don't know if I have a good solution for that. I don't know if there's, no, I do know there is a space for CTF games with, restricted entry. PPP runs a game for high schoolers or people under grade 12, and I think that's valuable for somebody who's just getting interested in the idea of breaking computer software for the first time, to not have to play against, Loki or GeoHot or somebody like that. But I think we can do better, and that we should do better as a community to make it more welcoming for new players and to provide games that new players can do well in. And that's something that we've always struggled with at LegitBS, and I'd like to hope that the Overflow can do better. But excellent question. That's got me introspecting a lot. Thank you for asking.
はい、ありがとうございました。それでは残念ながらお時間になってしまいましたので、以上をもちましてこのセッションを終わりたいと思うんですけども、ビトさんはきっとCTF の会場ですとか下の展示エリアとかいらっしゃると思うんで、もし質問とか足りなかった方は直接ビトさんを捕まえて、どんどん会話していただければなと思います。では最後にビトさんに大きな拍手をお願いいたします。ありがとうございました。
And yes, thank you for having me, and I'm sure I'll see you around the rest of the morning and also this afternoon. Thanks again for coming.
はい、それでは、このセッション以上となりまして、休憩となります。この後、よろずセッションが11時半から、再開いたしますので、それまでは、1階の CTF 会場ですとか、展示エリア、ハンズオンワークショップ等の方を、ご覧ください。であと、レシーバーなんですけれども、1個、数万円するそうです。1万円という情報がツイッターに流れてたんですけども、1個数万円だそうですので、必ず入り口の方で回収をお願いいたします。もしスタッフがいたら、周りの実行委員の方にお渡しいただいても結構です。